My name is Anna Tomšić, and I am the Vice President of Men's Health Network, a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to reach men, boys, and their families where they live, work, play, and pray. So we do that through health awareness messages, disease prevention messages and tools, screening programs, educational materials, advocacy opportunities, and patient navigation. We've spent many years working with the bipartisan Congressional Men's Health Caucus, currently co-chaired by Representatives Donald Payne Jr. of New Jersey and Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma. We'd like to take a moment to thank them and the Congressional Men's Health Caucus for making this briefing possible. And we hope that at some point during today's briefing, we will have the congressman come and say a few words. So when they do, we will stop the presentations that we have and give them a few minutes to speak. So we're honored to have you in attendance today on this briefing for first responders and the health issues that they face. We have a very distinguished panel here and to discuss a variety of topics addressing this topic. So we're going to get started to give them all enough time to speak. A bit of housekeeping, we're going to make time for about 1 or 2 short questions after each presentation, but we will have a question and answer session at the end. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question of the presenters as they are up here, or make sure you write it down so we can ask it at the end. Our first presenter is Regina Wilson. She is a firefighter for the Fire Department of the City of New York. She's currently assigned to Engine Company 219. She has been a member of the Fire Department for 20 years and is one of only 92 women in a workforce of over 11,000 firefighters and fire officers. Regina responded and assisted in the search and rescue and recovery of 9/11. She spent several months searching for members in her company and others who were victims of the tragedies. She also served in rescue and recovery efforts of both Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy. So we're going to put her presentation up. Okay. Do you want to start with the video or you want to do an introduction?
Just do a quick hello and then we can do the video. All right. How's everybody doing? Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to be able to.
That's the video.
Okay. I'm glad to be able to be here today to address everyone. I'm hoping that you'll have an opportunity to learn a little bit about me and to learn a bit about what's going on in New York and about women and people of color in the fire service. So we're going to begin with the video so you can just kind of figure out who I am. Sure.
The world know that African American females can do anything. I was born in East Flatbush section of Brooklyn. I think I was always the type to look after everyone. Living in Brooklyn with my mom, I think it was difficult for her being a single parent. At the age of 16 is when I realized my mom had a bad drug addiction. I remember graduating from junior high school and my mom was mad at me. She ended up not coming to my graduation, and later on when I got home that night, she beat me up pretty bad and dragged me by my hair across the floor. My grandmother told her that she was going to take me with her. She bought my plane ticket and took me out of the house. My grandmother, Alma, made me feel really wanted. She loved us more than we probably could ever know. Losing her was one of the biggest devastations in my life. I think about it often and use that energy to make sure she's proud of me. In 1992, I went to the Javits Center and I was there for a Black Expo. A recruiter came up to me and asked me if I ever thought about becoming a New York City firefighter, and I said no. Then they started to talk about, well, you know, this would be a great, unique opportunity for you because there's not a lot of African Americans and there's not a lot of women on the job. So I thought, like, why not me? And why is it that they think that a woman can't do this? The first part of becoming a firefighter, I had to take a written exam. I remember sitting in my classroom getting ready to take the test, and I was surrounded by white men. I was the only Black female in the room. I've never felt that much alone in my life, but I had to sit strong and know that I had to fight and know that I deserved to be here just like they did. There were drill instructors that as soon as they came on Randall's Island, their goal was to try to break my spirit. You don't belong here, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough. Anytime you want to leave, I'll walk you to the gate. All of those negativities just built me up. On the morning of 9/11, I was supposed to work on ladder 105. A member from 219 came in and asked me, can he switch with me because he wanted to get more truck experience? And I told him yes. We responded through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. We saw this white smoke and this white light. And then when we were walking towards the buildings, all you can hear is, we're under attack, we're under attack. I was in pitch blackness for at least like a good 2 minutes. Didn't know whether or not I was gonna live or die. After this experience, I know that every time I leave the firehouse, I could potentially not come back. I have to make sure that the gift of time that has been given to me is not wasted. The department has to really look at some of the patterns of racial and gender discrimination that they've had for so many years and break down that barrier and that wall. Because if you don't, this department is good, but it would never be great. Infuriates me when people in general say women aren't strong enough, men have the most upper body strength. Just let me pull you out, save your life, and then you can determine whether or not I did the best job once you're alive, because I came in the building to save your life.
All right, so hopefully that was a little look into my life and get a brief view of who I am. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of information about 9/11 because we've actually been going through a lot since that tragic day. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experience. How I could best describe what I went through during that day is having the feeling of submission of death, not knowing what you're going to live or die, but knowing you were dying with a purpose. So I've never felt, as scary as it is, I felt strength in knowing that if I died tomorrow, if I died in that moment, that I would die doing something that I love and I was passionate about. So life in itself meant everything to me in that moment, because I felt like I would leave with no regrets. And all of those people that were there that day felt the same way, because nobody went home. And even those that died during 9/11, they went up there with the same passion and goal to know that they had to do their job, and their job was sacrificing and dying to make sure that someone else lived. So that experience is the purest form of my job that I think I've felt since I've been on the job. And I've been on the job for 20 years now. So the realness of who we are as first responders is that moment for me right there, and it explains it all to me. So these women actually on the bottom were all women that responded to 9/11 in different capacities. Some of them are EMTs, some of them are police officers, some of them worked in different states. And the woman on the top was a New York City police officer, and she passed away during 9/11, and actually is the last photo that she took helping someone before she actually died. So this picture, I wanted really all of you to see the women that were there, because women themselves are written out of the story of 9/11. And you would not think that any woman participate in the rescue and recovery of 9/11. But we were there. We stood strong. We stood next to our brother firefighters, and we wanted to make sure that we were a standing strong point in making sure that people know that we care just like anyone else. Because bravery doesn't have a face. It's a desire and a passion in your heart. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experience as a ceremonial unit member. So this braid that I have on me right now means that I'm in that unit. And in that unit, I continuously experience 9/11. And this is something that people were like, well, why are you still there if you still have to keep going through it? Is because this moment of 9/11 is going to be with me for the rest of my life. So I can't give up on those people that were there that are still sacrificing to this day. So what you're seeing here is a lot of the ceremonies that we go to, and a lot of our brother and sister firefighters, police officers, sanitation, MTA all come out to help to celebrate and to the life of those that have died. But we have so many firefighters right now and EMS workers that are passing away from 9/11 related illnesses. So I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of the stats from it. So 23 police officers were killed during the World Trade Center in 2011. Since then, the NYPD stated that 156 have died of illnesses that came from them being on the pile and breathing in a lot of those toxins from the fallen building. Among firefighters, 343 died from New York City, and 194 have died from 9/11 related illnesses. And we're still to this day, as a unit of the ceremonial unit, are going to funerals. So not only are we going to funerals, but a year after you have to go to the plaque dedication, or you have to go to street renaming. So being able to experience all of that and dealing with the families and their trauma and all of the things that they go through, we still have to relive it. It feels like almost every day. Also, according to the FBI, federal agents have also seen a recent increase in the number of killed by 9/11 related illnesses, including 15 FBI agents. So we're suffering, in all different agencies in alarming rates. And we're with the 9/11 police officers and firefighters, we believe that we're going to surpass those numbers of people that died during the Trade Center from people that died during World Trade Center related illnesses. So some of the aftermath, according to the FDNY, over 2,100 firefighters and EMS personnel have retired with disability related to World Trade Center illnesses. They have lung diseases and cancers that are unexplainable. Research have found thyroid, colon, prostate, blood cancers are more prevalent for people that work down at ground zero. More than 7,000 firefighters and EMTs have been treated for 9/11 illnesses and injuries, which we're still doing to this day. Over 3,700 members have been diagnosed with mental health, stress-related conditions, myself included. 11,000 firefighters and EMS 9/11 responders have been certified as 9/11 related cancers. So people are still dealing with a lot of these cancers. There's actually a female firefighter that retired that has particles of cement in the bottom of her lungs that will never come out. I'll talk a little bit about women's health in the fire service, because some of those things are at an alarming rate, and we really need to try and focus on that. A lot of the studies are more going towards men, and they're not looking at to women in the fire service. So in San Francisco, they have 225, which is the largest amount of women across the country. Among 40 to 50-year-olds, female firefighters, their breast cancer rates are at an alarming rate. So 50% have been diagnosed with breast cancer out of those numbers. 75% of women firefighters in the U.S. and Canada have reported that they don't have access to specific personal protective equipment, which is the truth. Like, you don't have gloves that fit, your face piece don't fit properly, your bunker coat gear. So if you don't have the protective gear that's going to cover you properly, all those toxins can enter your body, which are making them more sick. But what happens is, a lot of times you go into the firehouses and they just tell you, you just have to wear whatever's here. And it doesn't really help us when it's time for us to fight off those toxic chemicals. And previous studies have identified high rates of cancer, We have muscular injuries, post-traumatic distress, and suicide among female firefighters. So I'm not sure if you all are aware that in 2016 there was a female firefighter in Fairfax that committed suicide because of bullying, and those post-traumatic and those bullying and hazing are something that women deal with all the time, as well as sexual harassment and discrimination. We just recently had a battalion chief that was a wildland fire chief that just resigned. It was Battalion Chief Bolt. She wrote a long letter describing her treatment into the wildland fire service. She did many years of service but could no longer deal with the discrimination amongst women in the fire service. Let me tell you a little bit about New York. So 7.3% of all firefighters in the U.S. is that's the percentage of it, and we've doubled in the past 15 years. So our numbers are starting to come up, but not fast enough for me, of course. Some cities are low as 1%. The Fire Department of New York is 0.5%, so we're not even a percentage at all. And also, like I said before, some of the studies are skewed towards men, so it's hard for us to figure out what some of the needs are, especially for mental health for women. Some of the other issues we have in reference to women and people of color are PTSD, and I was glad to read today that Connecticut is now allowing police officers and firefighters to claim PTSD. We have superhero syndrome, which means that we think, we can go through life and not ask for help, because we're seen as superheroes and is considered to be weak. Fear of retaliation, the suicide rates in fire service is high. We've had more people commit suicide than people died line of duty. We're also dealing with a lot of discrimination and sexual harassment. So what can you do to help? Some of the things you could do is continue to support funding and legislation that will support health needs and concerns for first responders and their family, which we really, really need. Continue to conduct studies related to women and people of color, mental and physical health. Implement necessary changes from the study to make a better working environment, and create legislation where we'll continue to conduct wellness checks and progress reports of fire departments across the country, and make sure that they're held accountable. So don't just do the studies and find the outcome. Hold them accountable to the changes that need to be made, because if they're not, if it doesn't help and it doesn't change and the department isn't willing to change, we'll go nowhere. So I just wanted to show you some links, some information that you could look into to see some of the studies that have been done. We definitely need more, and some of the issues that I brought up today to just kind of get a look and an insight of how things are done in the fire service. All right, and I want to thank you all for your support.
Do we have any quick questions for Regina Wilson? Yes.
Regina, I had read a little something about you have written your obituary, or I heard this story, and I want to hear this a little bit from you.
Okay, well, the story was, the video you saw was a 4-minute video. They cut it up. There's an 8-minute video. So at the end of the beginning of the video, I said I wanted to have the baddest obituary ever. So by the time my life is over, you're gonna have to flip through books like, dang, what does she do now? Oh my God. That's my life. That's what I want my life to be. So that's what that means.